let's start with this. I mean, I know you want to address some of the things that were said, but one of the things that Matt said was that when you debated Nick Sarwark, Sarwark was right about the purpose of the LP and the idea that most people know liberty and don't want it. And basically that the LP is supposed to, what you're caring about is getting votes over delivering a message. So you want to start there?
Sure. Well, I would say that a good rule of thumb is that anytime you're agreeing with Nick Sarwark, stop, take a breath, and really question whether or not you're getting this right. So what Matt said was, and by the way, I kind of appreciate that they were so shitty and kind of so insulting to me when they were on, because this kind of it gives me license to take the gloves off a little bit. So it's like, okay, if we want to do it like this, like when I reached out to Matt, I was kind of like, hey dude, I thought that was a really good podcast. I disagree with a lot, but I appreciate what you were saying. And he was like kind of apologetic, like, look, I'm sorry if I've been too critical of you and this and that, but like I really appreciate what you do and you had a big influence on me, and I know I've been critical of you. And I was like, yeah dude, if I'm getting something wrong and you think so, let me know. That's fine. But then they went on this other show and they're calling me all types of narcissist and predator and all this shit. So now it's like, okay, let's fucking, if we're going to do it this way, then okay, let's take the gloves off. So what he said was that Nick Sarwark was right in saying that the point of the Libertarian Party is not to minds, not to spread a message. Like, okay, bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Like the idea that what Matt said was like, you're using a tool in the wrong way. Well, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, that's like saying a screwdriver is a tool for screwing in screws. And if you're trying to pry open a closet door with it, then you're using this tool in the wrong way. And it's like, okay, well, I just pried open 3 doors with it and I'm about to pry open this 4th. So I don't care what you tell me this tool is for. It's effective in this way. And the truth is, the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of people who are libertarians, including me, including you, including Cypherius or whatever his name is, including him, including just about everyone you'll talk to in this space. Oh, how did they get introduced to these ideas? How did they get converted? It was through a presidential run. A presidential run is using a political party is a great messaging tool. It's a platform to give speeches and TV appearances and radio appearances and all of this stuff. So the idea that it shouldn't be used this way is that, I mean, it's just an assertion with nothing backing it up. And I can tell you that it can be used to spread this message and wake people up with demonstrable empirical evidence. So yeah, bullshit to that. Like, no, yeah. As usual, Nick Sarwark is wrong. And in fact, this is proven to be the most effective way to introduce these ideas to regular people who have never heard them before. So I don't know what, I don't even know what there is to argue about that. And I would just add that for the Libertarian Party, if first off, 2 things. Number one, this is why the Libertarian Party was started. This isn't like some, you know, like new idea of how we should use the Libertarian Party. This is the reason it was created. And Murray Rothbard was way on board with this idea. And a lot of the old school, you know, Lou Rockwell and those guys were all on board with it. And on top of that, I would also say that there is there's really no question that it's kind of the best way.
Okay, you guys should hear me now. I thank you all for letting me know that when the power went out, also my mic input got all screwed up. I was a big dummy. I didn't plug in my laptop and it just went poop. So I will be combining these two into one file eventually for my YouTube channel for those of you who want to watch it. But I felt like a big dummy. But yeah, and got my full glam wig on, because if this is a get ready with me, I've got to do some get ready with me. So let's go back to comments. And thank you, Sam. I'm glad that you like the glam wig there. Okay, perfect. So first of all, I laughed my ass off when he said, if you find yourself agreeing with Nick, you should stop. It's a shame because Nick used to be spot on. He's kind of, the cheese has slid off that cracker. But Dave Smith is absolutely correct. I did a show on this. I'll probably link it in the show notes, or I'll do another show on it because this can't be said enough. The Libertarian Party was founded to spread the ideas of liberty, not to win elections. That doesn't mean we can't win or we shouldn't run candidates. But if we just want to deal with history, history does not care about your feelings. That wasn't the purpose we were founded for. Dave Nolan, I think, listed 6 reasons why he founded the party, and electing candidates was not even one of them. Running candidates was. But he knew the odds were stacked against us, and he ran candidates to spread the ideas of liberty, because that is what would eventually change culture, that would get candidates elected. But you can't put the cart before the horse. And so on this point, Dave Smith is absolutely historically correct.
We had a weird Twitter like exchange that clearly stuck with him a lot more than it stuck with me, which happens to me a lot. And I still haven't figured out exactly how to manage this area of my interactions yet. That one of these things that happens with me a lot is that people come talking shit to me on Twitter, and I give it back to them. And it ends up sticking with them a lot more than it sticks with me. And I think part of this is my background as a comedian. Like when I came up in stand-up comedy, like it was, you went to the Comedy Cellar and the table in the back was like Patrice O'Neill and Dave Attell and Greg Giraldo and like these just savages. And the whole culture there was just, you like roast culture, like you rip everyone apart, and if you could land one back on them, that's good. So when people come at me like talking shit, it kind of just rolls off me, and then I'll throw it back at them if they come at me like that. And so, but then a lot of other people don't exactly have that same background. And so I think I created an enemy out of this guy that I really wasn't looking to do. Like he came at me on Twitter one time saying something, and I was like, yeah, I think that's just like a bullshit argument. And he was like, well, you're a pretty shit comic if you don't understand this argument. And I was like, oh, excuse me, I guess I'm a shit comic, but you're an excellent prostitute, or something like that. Like that's literally was the extent of my response. And he has hated me since then.
I found that exchange pretty interesting because he's dealing with some critics now who apparently he had some Twitter exchange with, and now they've hated him forever. Where he said Twitter exchanges that don't stick in his memory seem to stick in the memory of his opponents much longer, and he's trying to figure out why that is, and he thinks it's partially because of his comedy background. I think it's partially that, but I also think perhaps he's forgotten his own celebrity. When you're someone that's even minor well-known or more well-known than the person you're talking to, them talking to you and you engaging with them is kind of a big deal to them. And it's much more memorable than it is to you because you deal with a lot of people. I'm not a celebrity by any means, but within libertarian circles, I'm more well-known than a lot of people. And I find this happens to me quite a bit. People will remember something I said to them 5 years ago that I forgot within 5 minutes. And if it struck them the wrong way, they've hated me for those 5 years. Now, I can't picture holding on to anything that long. It's just not my nature. But it is pretty common. So an exchange that might have meant nothing to Dave was a big deal to the person that had the exchange with him. And yeah, some people will hold a grudge for a really, like, frighteningly long time. And people who have any amount of celebrity need to remember that. And I do think the comedy background comes into play because he's very used to, it's common in his culture to just lob these things back and forth. But there's also this weird sense of entitlement that people have towards people who might be celebrity figures, either minor or major, where they think they have the right to say absolutely anything awful to somebody if they're even semi a public figure, but that public figure does not have the right to respond in kind. And that's not right, but it's reality. So I just thought that was super, super interesting. And Fudabu says, I think of the LP as a sort of gateway, drug to liberty ideas. It's presenting unfamiliar ideas in a familiar way. Exactly, in a political context. And I think I probably forgot, and I'm so sorry, to either recognize or say thank you to several people who did super chats. And I do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. As you know, and I hope I don't change if my channel ever gets bigger, with big channels, it's necessary to do a super chat to get the host's attention. Obviously, I give attention to everybody pretty equally, but I do appreciate it and want you to know that I appreciate it, and that for everyone to know, you know, it's not necessary to do a super chat to get my attention. If you have a good comment, or yeah, I'm going to highlight it no matter what, and hopefully that will never change, but it is appreciated. Putting together these things does take time, and right now it is kind of my job. So thank you. I thank you again.
Oh, okay. I mean, no, I've never said I want platforms for platform's sake. What I've said is I want to get on the biggest platforms possible to spread these ideas, because I'm very good at that, and I'm very good at bringing new people into the movement. And every single time I get on one of these huge platforms, I get an overwhelmingly positive response, and we get way more people in our camp. That's just a fact. That's what happens. Now, listen, I'm not saying it's as good as I'd want it to be, and maybe there could be someone who does it better than me. And if so, I would fall in line and get behind that person. But I'll go on Joe Rogan's podcast that has millions of listeners, and there will be thousands of new people who are now following my stuff, thinking about diving into the literature, possibly joining the party, possibly not. But that's what I do every time I get on these platforms. So, you know, he can say that I'm not saying anything different than Ron Paul said. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and what Dave, I wanted to give the context. I apologize, I didn't do that before, of this particular show that Dave is doing with Pete Quinones, formerly known as Mance Raider. Apparently there's a couple guys, I don't know who they are, I didn't watch the show. Oh, and I got like a little braid going on here from the last time I wore this wig, where they were just chewing him up. And it just seemed, from his description of it, again, it is from his description of it, I didn't watch it myself, very, very petty and mean. And they're like, wow, Dave doesn't say anything new. Well, none of us really do. I mean, none of us are innovative philosophers. These ideas are very basic and timeless. Where none of us are saying something new when it comes to new, like, in the whole scheme of ideas. But to the people we're talking to, it's new. They haven't heard this before. And Dave is very good at this. And he has a large audience. And it seems like there is just some petty bitch jealousy going on with these critics of his. In my opinion, again, from his description of it, which obviously is going to be biased up to a point.
There are hundreds of millions of Americans who have never been introduced to these ideas before. And I know this for a fact because I'm out there introducing these ideas to them, and they come up to me and go, or tweet or email or see at shows and go, I've never heard these ideas before. Like, this is crazy that you introduced this to me. So I'm not claiming to be somebody who's saying something brand new that's never been said before. I'm just out there spreading the message to people who have never heard it before. I'm not claiming to be a philosopher. I happen to be very good at presenting these ideas in a way where you go, look, this thing that sounds crazy is actually really reasonable. And the thing that you just take as a given is actually really crazy. So the idea that you think a free market in public schools sounds crazy, like, it's actually really reasonable. And the fact that you think 2 world wars is just, hey, that's the way it happened, that's actually really crazy.
Okay, that's an exact, from a different show, almost an exact quote that he said before, and I said it was going to come up again, and here it is again. That's exactly it. We get so used to these ideas, we forget that most people haven't heard them. And they think the world, like the whole status thing, is reasonable and that we're crazy. And our goal is to reasonably present to them the exact opposite. And that's valuable. We actually don't need innovators. The ideas are solid. We need people who can present these solid ideas in an understandable, relatable way. And anyone who can do that, hats off to them. There are people who can do that to different crowds. There are people I can speak to that you can't. And then there are people I can't speak to that will write me off immediately because I have pink hair. There's some people who will accept me immediately because I have pink hair. There's audiences for everyone. And us savaging each other for these different skills that we have, it's just pathetic. And thank you, Terentia. I think that's the correct way to say it. Okay, so we're going to continue here. And again, if I ever miss a comment that perhaps I didn't see, or you think I should have interacted with that I didn't, just copy and paste it again. Sometimes I miss things.
But which, by the way, these guys, I get what they're doing and they know what they're doing. If they were being honest, they accuse me of being dishonest, but if they were being honest, they would be like, look, we're going to talk some wild shit about Dave to get more attention. And fine, you'll get that. But like I tweeted the other day, just be careful what you wish for, because that also will come with, like, a lot of people have gotten more followers. Like, there's no question that a lot of the loser brigade have more followers now because I've responded to them. But there's a cross to carry around that comes along with that. So no pun intended, but that might be the position you guys are in.
Okay, that is interesting. And something that celebritarians or any kind of celebrity within however small of any circle it might be, you then do become a target, and there are clout chasers who go after you because going after the popular person or the notorious person, excuse me, too much soda, brings them attention. And you've got to be very careful not to feed into that. And that's even positive or negative. And I try to avoid this because right now it's oh so fashionable to shit on Nick Sarwark. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it most of the time, but I think maybe a good 1/3 of it, of people that are doing it, it's not even really because they think it or he deserved it in that moment, but it's clout chasing because it's the popular figure to shit on right now. And we have to be really careful about that. And you know, if you're going to go after the celebrity, yeah, be prepared to take the consequences and that they might fire back and you might not like it. And you're not the victim when that happens.
Like one of the things these guys like to do is they say, well, oh, okay. So like the meme that one of them was sharing the other day. Take over the Libertarian Party, blank liberty. What happens in the meantime? It's like, okay, motherfucker, what's your plan for liberty? What do you have? Oh, that's right. You have nothing. You have retreatism. That's what you have. Run away from the fucking problem. And you can say, don't say that, but that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. Saying, yeah, liberty can't be sold, so we won't try to sell it. So we'll retreat to nihilism under the veil of Christianity. Selfishness under the veil of virtue.
I love that. We spend way too much time, and I have no respect for people who do this, picking apart other people's plans when we don't really have one of our own. Why don't we just let everyone do their plans and hope they succeed? So many people are dumping on Dave Smith. They're like, oh, they're gonna do this and that. Well, what's your plan? At least they're doing something. I'm not a member of a caucus. I criticize all caucuses. And I'm not anti-caucus. I'm not a member of a caucus because I don't think members of the LNC should be members of caucuses. I think everyone on the LNC who's in a caucus should immediately resign the caucuses. It just causes more trouble than it's worth, and you've got your hands full just dealing with your fiduciary duty to the party. But before, I used to be a hardcore member of the Radical Caucus. Like, I was completely sold out for the Radical Caucus. But as I started observing the caucuses, I saw the radical caucus since 2016, they're not effective anymore. That was their height. 2016 was their height. And I observed the Mises caucus is getting shit done. Why do I spend a lot of time hanging out there? And why am I pretty supportive? Because they're getting shit done. I don't want to hear people bitching about them who aren't getting shit done. Just go get shit done. We spend way too much time criticizing the successes because we're jealous. I think we're being salty little bitches. Jealous of the successes of other people. And these people, whoever these two guys are, just sitting on a podcast tearing down Dave's efforts. How is that productive? It's just catty. And there's nothing worse than catty men. Catty women are bad enough, but catty men, it's like lay off the soy, okay? Because you're going to grow moobs before you know it.
Don't fucking act like there's nobility in that, and at least don't attack the rest of us who are actually out here trying to fight. Like this bullshit, like, you know, about like, just like, oh, just get more money and make the state an inconvenience. It's like, yeah, well, here's the deal, Matt. Some of us have actually already taken care of our own and are already in a decent situation, are already responsible people, and we care about others. We care about the fact that there's a war on right now that we're trying to end. We care about the fact that people are locked in cages over bullshit, and we're trying to help those people. So you go whatever strategy. I'm not knocking any of them, man. I've never knocked Jason Stapleton for taking the turn he's taken, you know, and focusing on the Harry Brown, how to be free in an unfree world. But I'm also not, you know, I'm pursuing the other Harry Brown path that he did a few years later. These things are not in conflict. So I'm not knocking agorists. I'm not knocking Liberty Republicans. I'm not knocking any of them. But I would ask them to stop trying to fucking tear down what we're doing, because we're on the verge of doing something pretty goddamn special right now. We are on the verge of actually succeeding, Pete, in what we set out to do. And now people are going to talk about how we have to bail on this, that we're about to take over the third biggest political party in the biggest country in the world, that we're about to de-wokeify an institution for maybe the first time in history.
Exactly. There's an all too human nature that I think gets amplified in small groups, small incestuous groups like the LP, where we think we raise ourselves up by putting someone else down. That's immediate loss of respect for me. If you need to raise yourself or someone you support up by putting someone down. Like in my campaigning, like I totally eschew negative campaigning. Anyone who's on my campaign team who negative campaigns, they're going to be asked not to. And if they can't stop, they're gone. Let's say I was running against, I'm just going to make up a name. I can't even make up a name. Jane Doe. I don't like when someone would say, well, I can't even think of a good example, but insulting Jane in order to make me look better. If I'm a good candidate, I'm a good candidate on my own strengths, not on Jane's faults. And I'll give you a story, a real life story about this. I can't remember, was it Mississippi? Was it Alabama? It was a state in the South. I can't remember which one, when I was running in 2018. And it was a candidate question and answer. And it was one of those like typical job interview ones. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And one of the questions was pretty much name something bad about your opponent. And I refused. I said, I'm not going to do that. And they said, well, what if we say we won't vote for you if you couldn't do that? If you couldn't say something negative about or what was the worst thing about your opponent or something like that. I said, then you shouldn't vote for me because I'm not the person you want if you want someone who's able to do that. No negative campaigning. And I think we can criticize each other for genuine issues, but this tearing down of the work of others because it's not the way we would do it is just complete shit.
But like, yeah, there's real potential there. There's real potential, and we should be talking to those people. And this is one of the things that I really disagree, although I have tremendous respect for Tho Bishop on, that he's almost saying I can't talk to those people now because I'm like in the Libertarian Party. And I'm just like, well, I'm doing it and I'm talking to a whole lot of them. I mean, literally at the marches in Arizona, the protests over like count the votes or stop the steal or whatever, there's part of the problem t-shirts in that group. So don't fucking tell me I can't talk to these people because I'm on this party instead of this party. The truth is, a lot of the people, the best people, are willing to just hear your message and hear what you have to say. And so I don't think we have to lie. Like, I don't think we have to claim to know something we don't know, but there's two sides to that. There's a whole lot of libertarians who will kind of claim, well, there's no way the election was stolen. And you're like, shut the fuck up. Well, you're going to act like the government is to be trusted. Like, why do we trust any of these elections? Except some libertarian, give me a reason why I trust anything the government says at this point.
Do you want to know why I what put me over the edge to wanting to see Starwalk and his ilk just crying in the middle of a field naked and friggin' covered in dust is when they started saying that January 6th was an insurrection.
Yeah.
These motherfuckers.
Yes,
man.
But that's valuable, dude. That's valuable to us. And I do agree with Tho that we got to keep in mind that those guys are small potatoes. But I'll tell you, and maybe this is me being a little Machiavellian, but I start going, when I see that, I'm like, excellent, because they're exposing themselves. And this is perfect. It's like, yes, that's exactly what you can count on. The corporate press narrative is what they will put out, and this is why they will fail, and this is why they are failing. I mean, look, dude, this isn't like a fucking game. Like, I mean, when I first debated Sarwalk, he was the sitting chair of the Libertarian Party, the longest serving chair. And after that, today, he's noted. I mean, like, we've just dominated this guy.
Okay, that is the last of the clips. So before I forget, though, I actually like this look. I don't know. I dig the dual color. This is a cheap ass wig. I would love to have a real human hair wig that had the dual color. This is like Party City bullshit. But I like the look. I like the glam look. But to conclude out this segment, and I'm getting ready now to go testify at Castle Rock. I'll probably talk about that afterwards. But now I kind of like lost my train of thought a little bit because the wig is squishing my head. Oh, the insurrection thing. First of all, Nick wasn't chair of the party when that happened. That happened this year. You know, Nick had been gone for a while. But I feel the exact same way. Oh, I know. I wanted to back up. Dave really convicted me here. And that's kind of a Christian word. You people who aren't churchy, it means he pricked my conscience here. And I see my videos a little choppy. Very, very sorry about that. I need to hardwire into here. I'm on wireless. You should never stream on wireless. I need to hardwire throughout my house. But I fell into that trap. The LP as a whole has fallen into that trap where you can't talk to Trumpsters. You can never agree with Trumpsters. You can't even get the whiff of being friendly at all to Trumpsters. And that is a bad attitude. We can be hostile to the Republican Party establishment, but your average, everyday Republican or Trumpster is just another person who hasn't woken up to liberty yet. And I was getting kind of snobbish like that. I fed into, and that was wrong, that attitude. And I'm still struggling with not being that way, that we need to be willing to talk to everybody. But the way it started, the way it actually still is in this party, if you're reaching out to Trumpsters, your fellow libertarians will attack you. But if you're reaching out to the left, you're a fucking hero. And that it's not right. That's not right. And the pinnacle of that was the way the National LP handled the January 6th incident. It was not a fucking insurrection. These people would shit their pants to see an actual insurrection. To buy into that left woke bullshit narrative was such a shame. I'm on a committee called the APRC, on the National Committee. That's short for Advertising, Publication, and Review Committee. We review every communication that comes out of the National Party. And we're allowed to disapprove some of them, but only on very narrow grounds. I can disapprove, and I need to get other APRC members to join in on this, but I could disapprove a communication if it violated the bylaws, the platform, or, and here's the third very broad thing, and I've disapproved, been the lone wolf disapprover under this category than anyone else on this committee ever. I'm a pain in the ass on this committee. No wonder they wanted to remove me. The third category you can disapprove a communication is harmful to the image of the party. That January 6th original one, you guys saw an edited version, which was bad. You should have seen the original one. It's better because of me. It still sucked. But I originally said, disapprove, harmful to the image of the party. It was edited to try to placate me and get my approval. Several times, and I still refused to approve it. I was the only one, so it still got sent out. But you should have seen the original. There's a lot I do behind the scenes that you guys don't know about. There's so many communications that go out that I'm the lone disapproval for it being harmful to the image of the party. And I get overruled. Okay. On that ground, oh boy, and you guys don't know how shitty the website would have been, but for me and Arvin, who were on the APRC when the website was going up. We disapproved the fuck out of so much you just do not even know. One day I'll go through the website and I'll tell you some things that are different because of me and Arvin. But I don't have an Arvin with me on this committee. Most of them just approve things. They're more worried about grammar, which is important. But that January 6th email, I threw a shit fit over. It was such fear-mongering bullshit. And you want to know what I got told afterwards? Well, it brought in a lot of money. And I got shown the numbers. And I said, I don't care. It still sucked. And it was not worthy of us to buy into that bullshit. It wasn't an insurrection. It was a failed Village People rehearsal of people taking selfies and LARPing that they were actually doing something. They were actually quite pathetic figures that are now still languishing in prison and not a peep out of the Libertarian Party. And that's a shame. Take a look at comments before we go. And then I'm off to do actual real political work in Castle Rock. Okay, I'm going to pull these comments over. Let me see here. Thank you so much, David Moran. And it's funny, my program, because I guess you did a super sticker, but my program describes it to me. It says, Pear character dancing under a rain of confetti and taking his hat off to you, saying, you are amazing. The visual, like I get to imagine it. That's wonderful. And thank you so much, everyone. Let's continue here. Yes, that is, it's Pete Canona. The two men speaking is Dave Smith, and Pete Canona is formerly known as Mance Raider. Okay, I think, so I've been at this for a couple hours. I thank you all so much. I'm sorry for not plugging. I'm going to put a big note here because I've done that before on my little station to plug in your laptop, girl. But I'm going to get ready. We're testifying. I'll tell you briefly what we're doing before I go, and then I'll give a post report afterwards. The town of Castle Rock is generally pretty good. Douglas County is generally a pretty conservative county in a blue state. All of a sudden, we see, just got notified of it 2 days ago, 4 ballot measures that the town council is considering town sponsoring, so they don't need to be petitioned to be put on the ballot. Tax increases, 4 of them. I tried to get the town council to sponsor putting RCV on the ballot, and they were just beside themselves about how this will confuse the voters, and we can't have them deciding that. But yeah, they're just going to sponsor 4 tax increases. So we're going to testify against them tonight. And one of them is an anti-Tabor measure. Those of you who aren't in Colorado, you don't know about Tabor, and you don't know Tabor is taxpayer Bill of Rights, and it's a way for excess tax funds that were collected to get refunded back rather than staying in the coffers, unless a municipality gets the consent of the voters to keep it. Well, 4 years ago, because Castle Rock is relatively affluent, they got the majority of the voters to say you could keep these refunds. Of course, over and above the minority, less affluent populace here, who could have really used that money. To me, if you want to send back in your Tabor refund, Mr. Rich Person, you do it. But don't take it out of the pockets of your less affluent neighbors. So they suspended our Tabor refunds for 4 years. Now they're putting on the ballot to suspend it for a decade. Are you out of your frickin' minds? So that's one of the things we'll be opposing. I'll get into the nitty-gritty of it later and how the testimony went. We only had a few days. We called up, when I say we, it was Wayne, called up as state chair a bunch of local libertarians. We tried to round up some activists in the very short notice that we had. This is the type of real local political work that libertarians can be very, very effective at. So it's the first hearing tonight. I'll let you guys know how it goes. Before I go, put back on the old lady glasses, but at least I wear fun ones. If I'm going to get old, I'm going to be have fun doing it. Below is my Patreon. If you can, it's greatly appreciated. I'm about $40 a month away from a major milestone, and I don't press that, but there you go. And I perhaps will talk to you later about what went on at the Castle Rock. Maybe I'll even film some of what went on at the Castle Rock hearing tonight. Okay, everyone, I hope you have an awesome night. Love you all.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not